Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration estimates that there are 68,000 accidents every year in the U.S. involving lift trucks. Of those, about 100 people are killed. Here's how the accidents break down in terms of causes. 25% are tip-overs. 18% include personnel struck by a powered industrial truck. 14% are personnel struck by a falling load. 12% are employees who have fallen off of elevated forks. 7% are lift trucks that have been run off loading docks or other surfaces. And 6% by improper maintenance. Lift truck accidents are very costly to companies as well. These costs include product and equipment damage, lost time, increased insurance premiums, and litigation costs. It is not uncommon for accidents to cost a company over $1 million. Some companies cannot survive the aftermath of such an accident, resulting in the company having to permanently close the doors. Federal OSHA requires that lift truck operators be authorized and trained. Such training consists of a combination of formal training, such as in a classroom, practical hands-on training, and an evaluation of the operator's performance in the workplace. The training shall cover truck-related and workplace-related topics. Government studies have shown that effective training programs improve lift truck operator safety performance. With proper training and the right attitude, we can improve safety. The program you are about to see was produced by Mitsubishi Caterpillar Forklift America in an effort to give you a better understanding of how to become a safe and professional lift truck operator. This course covers safe lift truck operation, how a lift truck operates, how to perform a pre-operational inspection, both walk-around and operational checks, safety guidelines for operating lift trucks, safe load handling techniques, the safety rules for refueling internal combustion lift trucks, and how to change and charge industrial batteries for electric-powered lift trucks. In the first part of this training program, we will answer these fundamental questions about lift trucks. What does it mean to be a professional? What are the responsibilities and obligations of a professional lift truck operator? Lastly, what parts of a lift truck must an operator know and understand? So what do we mean when we say he or she is a professional lift truck operator? To be a professional lift truck operator, a person must be recognized as someone who is responsible and knowledgeable. Responsible simply means someone who lives up to their obligations. They get to work on time, well rested, mentally alert, and ready to start work. If they need medication, they heed the warning labels on prescription and over-the-counter drugs that predict drowsiness. As a lift truck operator, you will be at the controls of a powerful piece of equipment. As a professional, you will be responsible for those workers around you, yourself, and your vehicle. Operating a lift truck safely and professionally is a big responsibility, and it's not easy. Not everyone has the mechanical aptitude, coordination, maturity, and desire to take on the demands and pressures of the job. If you are ever in doubt about your suitability to operate a lift truck, talk to your supervisor about the situation. Don't ever put others or yourself at risk. Operator inexperience and lift truck misuse can result in accidents that can cause injury, death, and financial loss. By being responsible, you can avoid accidents and contribute to the success of your company and the people you work with. In addition to being responsible, the professional is knowledgeable. The professional knows and follows the company rules concerning work, safety, traffic, and company operations. A professional also knows their equipment. This includes the lift truck he or she might operate and the protective clothing and equipment that must be worn. Your company may require you to wear specific personal protective equipment, such as hard hats and safety glasses. Follow all your company's requirements for personal safety equipment and clothing. Your company may also require you to remove all jewelry. Professionals have this knowledge because they have taken the time to learn about their vehicle's operation, capabilities, limitations, and maintenance needs. Information can be found in the Operation and Maintenance Manual, plus the warning and instruction decals on the truck itself. But beyond this, they are committed to constantly improving their abilities and to the idea that they must at all times operate their vehicles safely and under complete control. This training program is a start, but there is more required of you to do. Most of the general principles and precautions covered in this program apply to the safe operation of lift trucks in general. regardless of make, model, or year. But the importance of the information on the warning labels found on most lift trucks cannot be overemphasized. Improper operation or maintenance can result in injury or death. Do not operate or work on this truck unless you have been authorized and properly trained to do so. Lift trucks bear a number of warning labels and warning plates. A plate that bears "Danger" as its signal word indicates an imminently hazardous situation, which, if not avoided, will result in death or serious injury. A plate that bears "Warning" as its signal word indicates a potentially hazardous situation, which, if not avoided, could result in death or injury. A plate that bears "Caution" indicates a potentially hazardous situation, which, if not avoided, may result in minor or moderate injury. Know the ones on your vehicle as well as any warnings in the Operation and Maintenance Manual, and follow them. This is an example of a typical operator's warning plate. It spells out specific warnings and calls for you to observe them. During this program, we are going to cover the warnings contained on the operator's warning plate and the vehicle's ratings and capacities contained on the capacity plate. Our next question is, what is a lift truck? First, let's understand the similarities to and the differences between driving a car and operating a lift truck. Just because you can drive a car doesn't mean you are qualified to operate a lift truck. You use your car for personal transportation, to get from one place to another over wide paved roads. When you drive a car, you follow the rules of the road to prevent accidents, and before you drive a car, you must be trained by taking a written and road test. Once you successfully pass, you receive a license to drive. Passengers are generally allowed, and the vehicle will typically not exceed 5,000 pounds in weight. Cars have a steering wheel, accelerator pedal, service and parking brakes, and an ignition system. They also have front wheel steering. A lift truck is not used for personal transportation to get from point A to point B. It has load handling functions such as lifting and tilting. Lift trucks can travel indoors over smooth surfaces, in and out of rail cars and tractor trailers, and in narrow aisles. They also travel outdoors over uneven surfaces where additional traction and greater underclearance is required. Lift trucks also have a steering wheel, an accelerator pedal, service and park brakes, and an ignition system. But, unlike a car, they steer from the rear. Typically, the lift truck exceeds 5,000 pounds in weight and is not equipped to accommodate passengers. And training is required before personnel can be considered qualified to operate a lift truck. An operator license is not required. There are many varieties of powered industrial trucks and material handling devices, including walking pallet movers and rider pallet stackers, narrow aisle units, and counterbalance sit-down rider-type lift trucks. The counterbalance sit-down rider-type lift truck are the focus of this training program. They are called counterbalanced units because the load is carried in the front of the vehicle and counterbalanced by the vehicle's own weight. Because they are so versatile, this type of truck accounts for 75% of all lift truck applications. This type of truck is available in a range of capacities from 2,000 pounds to 110,000 pounds, or 1,000 to 50,000 kilograms. What parts of a lift truck must an operator know and understand? Let's find out more about a lift truck by defining its parts and their functions. The forks, carriage, and load backrest extension engage the load and support it. The mast, it supports the forks, carriage, and load backrest extension and guides their vertical travel during lifting and lowering and consists of a set of channels called a stage. A lift truck can be equipped with a double, triple, or quad stage mast. Refer to your workbook for an exact description of these types of masts. There are also critical mast dimensions you should be aware of. These dimensions are overall height lowered, free fork height, maximum fork height, liftoff, and overall height raised. Let's take a few minutes to explain these critical dimensions. The overall height lowered dimension refers to the distance from the floor to the top of the mast when the forks are fully lowered. This dimension is especially important when driving through doorways. The height of the doorway must be higher than the mast's overall lowered height dimension, or the mast will hit the door overhead. The free fork height dimension refers to the distance the forks can be raised without increasing the overall lowered height of the mast. Free fork height dimensions can range from 4 inches for simplex masts to 60 inches for duplex, triplex, and quad masts. The dimension is especially important when working in confined spaces with a low ceiling height. An example of this is inside a tractor-trailer container. Material inside a container can be stacked 2 pallets high. In order to retrieve the top pallet, the operator must use a truck with a mast that has a sufficient free fork height dimension. Otherwise, the mast could go through this container's ceiling. The maximum fork height dimension refers to the distance from the floor to the top of the carrying surface of the forks when the mast is fully raised. This dimension is important because it lets the operator know how high he can stack pallets in a rack system. Closely associated with maximum fork height is the lift-off dimension. This dimension allows about 4 to 6 inches of additional lift height necessary to store and retrieve pallets in the top rack position. The overall height raised dimension is the distance from the floor to the top of the load backrest extension when the mast is fully extended. This dimension is critical, especially when the building has lights, air ducts, and sprinkler systems hanging from the ceiling. The directional control lever is used to engage the truck's transmission to travel forward, in reverse, or when the vehicle must be in neutral. Among manufacturers, the most popular design for direction control is a hand-operated lever found just at the left of the truck's steering wheel. Some manufacturers provide a foot pedal or directional control. Refer to your operation and maintenance manual for the proper operation of this feature. Lift cylinders provide the hydraulic power to raise and lower the mast, while tilt cylinders move the mast forward and back. Mast movements are controlled by the levers in the operator's compartment. There is a lever for raising and lowering the mast, tilting the mast, and operating the auxiliary hydraulic systems, such as a side shifter or a clamp. The drive axle transmits power to the drive wheels, which are in the front. The drive wheels also contain the brakes. The steer axle, located in the rear, directs the rear wheels in steering and gives the operator directional control of the truck. This feature gives a lift truck excellent maneuverability because the vehicle pivots on the front drive wheels. However, in a turn, the rear end swings out and around outside the drive wheel path. As an operator, you must be aware of obstacles behind you, otherwise you could cause damage to property and products, as well as injury to yourself and others. The overhead guard helps protect the operator from falling objects. The operator restraint system helps keep the operator inside the confines of the vehicle in the event of a tip-over. This means the operator must always use the lift truck's restraint system. Part of the truck's safety system includes the presence detection system. This PDS system includes features that disengage the transmission and lock out truck hydraulics when the operator leaves the seat of the truck while the truck is running. PDS also includes a 30-second seatbelt audible alarm and a reminder icon on the truck's display. Finally, the system includes an audible alarm when the operator leaves the truck without engaging the truck's park brake. Other parts of the truck include the counterweight. This feature offsets the loads that are to be carried, the fuel port, and the engine battery compartment. In addition to understanding the load handling features of a lift truck, you must also understand tire design. Trucks are designed for either solid or pneumatic tires. Solid tires, also called cushion tires, are primarily for indoor work on finished surfaces that are dry and level. These tires are compact and make the truck highly maneuverable, which is ideal for working in aisles and congested areas. Cushion tire trucks also retain lifting capacity better than pneumatic tired trucks. The same compact design becomes a disadvantage, however, when the operator has to travel over imperfect surfaces. Their narrow design and small contact area provide less traction. Therefore, an operator must exercise caution when traveling over uneven surfaces and should avoid slippery areas. If you have to operate on poor surfaces or outside, stay on level pavement, reduce speed, and avoid all ground debris. The word pneumatic means filled with air. The trucks that have pneumatic tires can operate in or out of doors over any solid base surface. Their larger dimensions provide better traction over slippery surfaces and offer increased ground clearance. These types of tires can either be air or solid filled. Solid pneumatic tires provide advantages when operating in yard applications littered with debris that could potentially cause a flat tire. Although, because they are typically wider and have a longer wheelbase, their turning radius is far greater than that of the trucks designed for solid or cushion type tires. This is the end of Part 1. Please review the information you have been given and complete Part 1 of your workbook. When you are done, resume your training by watching Part 2 of this program. As a lift truck operator, your main goal is to use your machine safely and with precision. In order to do this, you must always have your truck under complete control. And maintaining control means understanding the principle of balance. The stability of a lift truck is based on the principle of balance. We are all familiar with the teeter-totter. To balance the teeter-totter, you had to have equal weight on either side of the center pivot point for the teeter-totter to balance. The center pivot point on a lift truck is known as the fulcrum. For lift trucks, the weight of the load and the mast on one side of the drive axle must be balanced by the truck's weight on the other side. The truck's offsetting weight for internal combustion engine lift trucks includes the engine, transmission, frame, steer axle, and counterweight. And for electric-type lift trucks, the offsetting weight includes the battery, panel, motors, frame, steer axle, and counterweight. As you can see by this diagram, the front wheels act as a fulcrum between the truck and its weight and the load and its weight. Now, let's consider the elements of a load. Every load has a center of gravity. The center of gravity is defined as the location within an object around which all weight is evenly distributed. And this definition remains true regardless of the object's shape. These three loads weigh the same, but because they have different shapes, they have different centers of gravity. You will often hear the term load center. The load center is defined as the distance from the face of the forks to the load's center of gravity. Most lift trucks are related to lift a specific weight to a specific height at a given load center, usually 24 inches. That means the load center of gravity must be 24 inches or less from the face of the forks in order for the truck to lift its rated capacity. The lift truck's center of gravity. Since a lift truck travels forward and in reverse, lifts, lowers, and tilts, its center of gravity moves. The lift truck's center of gravity moves forward as the mast tilts forward and moves back as the mast is tilted back. The center of gravity moves up as the mast is raised and moves down as the mast is lowered. When a lift truck picks up a load, the center of gravity of the truck and the center of gravity of the load will produce a combined center of gravity. Lift truck balance and stability are affected by both static conditions and dynamic forces. Static conditions can be affected by load characteristics. If load conditions are improper in size, shape, and position on the forks, it could affect the lift truck balance. Other static conditions include tire pressure for air-filled pneumatic tires and the dynamic forces created by motion, which include acceleration, speed, braking, lifting, lowering, tilting, and turning. Operating a vehicle on an uneven surface like a ramp changes the combined center of gravity, which affects its stability. By law, every truck must have a capacity plate. The plate contains information that is crucial to the safe operation of the lift truck to which they are attached. This information includes the load center, the load weight that the vehicle can safely handle, and the height the load can be lifted with the mast vertically. Another piece of information on the capacity plate is the offset dimension. Offset is the distance a load can move across the mast. The typical movement of the Cat lift truck side shift carriage is 4 inches either side of the center. So an offset dimension will not appear on the capacity plate. If a truck is equipped with an attachment with more than 4 inches of movement either side of the center, the capacity plate will show how many inches the load can travel horizontally and the net capacity of the truck. Other information includes the model number, serial number, and truck weight. On electric-powered trucks, the capacity plate will also show the truck weight with and without a battery, battery voltage, and minimum and maximum battery weight. In this example, the lifting capacity is 2,400 pounds. The load center is 24 inches to 188 inches with the mast vertical. Because truck capacity is dependent on load center and lift height, whenever the load center and/or lift height is increased, the amount of weight that can safely be lifted must be decreased. This is important because sometimes lift trucks are equipped with attachments other than forks. Attachments such as clamps or side shifters actually reduce capacity in 2 ways. First, the attachment can often lengthen the load center, thus reducing its load lifting ability. Second, the attachment's weight reduces the lift truck's capacity. You should therefore think of a truck with an attachment as already partially loaded. Before a lift truck's original design is altered with a new mast or an attachment, the federal OSHA standard says you must receive the lift truck manufacturer's written approval prior to making any modifications or additions that affect the capacity or safe operation of the lift truck. Once written approval is obtained, you must request and install a new capacity plate indicating the correct lifting capacity. The next part of your training should include an understanding of how lift truck stability is maintained. A typical lift truck has a 3-point suspension, the 2 drive wheels, and the center point of the rear axle. The rear axle pivots as a single point in the center to compensate for uneven surfaces. This forms the stability triangle base. With the lift height dimension added, a stability pyramid results. In order for a lift truck to remain upright, the combined center of gravity must remain inside this pyramid. If you allow the center of gravity to shift outside the pyramid, an imbalance will occur, resulting in a loss of steering control, loss of traction, unstable loads, and the potential for a tip-over. About 25% of all fatalities involving lift trucks occur when the truck tips over. To avoid tip-overs, it will help you to understand the principle of stability. Because the center of gravity of an object is not fixed, it can change when acted upon by certain forces. The combined center of gravity, which is created by a truck and its load, tends to move toward the edge of a stability pyramid under certain circumstances. Lateral stability can be lost when the center of gravity moves too far to either side of and crosses over the stability pyramid, causing the lift truck to tip sideways. Now, let's take these 2 trucks, one with a load 4 to 6 inches above the ground and one unloaded. If these 2 trucks had to take a turn quickly, Which one would resist tipping laterally the most? The truck with the load? You're right. The combined center of gravity of the loaded truck is closer to the base of the stability pyramid than the unloaded truck. It has more room to move side to side before crossing over the stability pyramid. The closer the center of gravity is to the boundaries of the stability pyramid, the less it takes for the truck to become unbalanced and tip over. Longitudinal stability can be lost when the center of gravity moves too far forward or back and crosses over the stability pyramid, causing the lift truck to tip forward or backward. Sharp turns, braking abruptly, excessive speed, contact with an obstruction, traveling with a load too high and/or tilted past the vertical position, raised masts, and traveling over wet or uneven surfaces can result in the loss of stability. In addition, unstable loads, driving on ramps, and low tire pressure found on pneumatic lift trucks can affect stability and result in a tip over. Avoid these situations and never lift or travel with a load that is greater than the rated capacity of your truck. Remember, it is your responsibility to maintain the center of gravity within the confines of the stability pyramid. By keeping your maneuvers smooth and slow, you will minimize the chances of losing stability and creating a tip over. This is the end of Part 2. Please review the information you have been given and complete Part 2 in your workbook. When you are done, resume your training with Part 3 of this program. Before operating a lift truck, you must make an inspection of all systems and controls to ensure that they are working properly. Federal OSHA states that industrial trucks must be examined before being placed in service and shall not be placed in service if the examination shows any condition adversely affecting the safety of the vehicle. Such an examination shall be made at least daily. Where industrial trucks are used on a round-the-clock basis, they shall be examined after each shift. Defects when found shall be immediately reported and corrected by authorized and trained technicians. In addition to federal OSHA requirements, regular inspections can reduce downtime and service costs, increase productivity, monitor truck performance, and ensure safe operation. Improper maintenance accounts for 6% of all injuries involving lift trucks. At the beginning of each shift, inspect your truck using a checklist. Here is a typical example of an inspection checklist. Make sure you cover all the items on the list, checking as you go to be certain all systems on the lift truck are functioning properly. Your truck may be equipped with additional items than those on the checklist. Make sure you inspect these items both visually and operationally as well. An inspection won't take long, and it is a very important part of your job as an operator. A typical inspection should begin by performing the walk-around segment first. Start by looking around the lift truck for loose or missing bolts, debris or dirt buildup, and underneath the vehicle for signs of leaking fuel, oil, or engine coolant. Examine the overall condition of the frame, checking carefully for cracks, severe rust or corrosion, or other damage. Next, check the tires and wheels. Look to see that the lug bolts are all present and tight. Cushion tires may have cuts, pieces missing, foreign objects embedded in them, or the rubber may have separated from the wheel. Also, look behind the wheels where foreign objects like wire, plastic strapping, or string tend to collect. The air pressure should be checked on air-filled pneumatic tires using the guide in the operator's manual for the correct inflation. Remember, a damaged or underinflated tire will decrease the stability of a lift truck. Next, check the forks. The forks must be level. One tip should not be higher than the other. The forks must be evenly spaced, and the fork pins operational and locked in place. Look for drilled or flame-cut holes in the forks or unauthorized weldments. In addition, look for any excessive wear or cracks in the forks and hanger brackets. Follow this by checking the mast, carriage, and load backrest extension for bending or twisting damage and for any loose or missing bolts. Check the lift chains for wear, broken links, and missing pins. Proper chain tension is very important as it will prevent uneven lifting. It should be verified by applying manual pressure to the lift chains with a block or board. Avoid placing your hand in this dangerous pinch point area. The chains should be well lubricated. Inspect the carriage and mast for loose rollers. Check the tilt and lift cylinders and their hoses. They must all be free of hydraulic fluid, which would indicate a leak. Use a piece of cardboard to check for leaks. Hydraulic oil under pressure can pierce your skin and cause serious injury. Never place your hand over hoses and fittings, and never grab or shake a hydraulic hose with your hand. Make sure the mast channel is free of foreign objects, such as pieces of wood or wire. Look for any damage and loose or missing mounting bolts on the overhead guard. Examine the overhead guard for drilled holes or welded brackets that were not provided by the lift truck manufacturer. Engine checks for internal combustion machines can begin with a look at the various fluid levels: engine oil, brake fluid, and radiator coolant. The engine coolant level can be checked by looking at the recovery bottle. Never remove the radiator cap. Fluid in the radiator is under pressure and could cause injury. You should also check to see that nothing has covered the fan side of the radiator grill. Inspect the belts and hoses. It is important that they are not frayed or worn. The air filter should be checked. A dirty filter will cause the lift truck's engine to run less efficiently, thereby increasing the emission of toxic exhaust gases. Also, inspect the engine hood latch to make sure it secures the hood when closed. Internal combustion engines that are LP powered require some special attention. Before starting your check, make sure you are wearing protective gloves and eyewear. Make sure the LP container is properly mounted, the tank positioned on the alignment pin, the container restraint brackets are locked, and the tank fits within the profile of the truck. Check the date stamped on the LP tank. It should not be 12 years or older. Also, check the LP container for dents, nicks, and cracks. Check the connectors and hoses. Then, as you slowly turn the LP container valve to the on position, listen and smell for any gas that might be escaping from the delivery system. If you detect a leak, it can be located by applying a soapy water solution to the suspected area. Even a small leak will produce identifying bubbles. Do not touch this area with your bare hands. The extremely low temperature of LP gas can severely burn you. Before you operate a battery-powered lift truck, the battery system must be checked. To do this, open the battery compartment and check the electrolyte levels. Add water to the cells as needed to correct low levels. Make sure to use water that has been determined acceptable for filling batteries. Remember to wear protective equipment such as face shield, glasses, rubber gloves, and an apron if you service or replace batteries. This includes checking electrolyte levels in the battery. In addition, you will need to check that the battery connectors and cables are clean and free of cracks and frayed or exposed wires. And check to see that the battery is secured and locked in place by the battery restraint system. Lastly, check that the capacity plate and all warning decals are legible and in place. Make sure the correct operator's manual is on board and see to it that the operator's compartment is free of any loose items, debris, or grease. With these visual checks completed, you are now ready to make the operational checks. To enter the operator's compartment, squarely face the side of the lift truck. Grasp the assist grip with your left hand, the seat hip restraint with your right hand, and step up with the left foot to get on the truck. Avoid grabbing the steering wheel. The steering wheel has a certain amount of play that could cause you to lose your balance. The seat belt should latch properly and should not be frayed or torn. Sound the horn and make sure other warning devices and floodlights on the truck are operational. Make sure the hour meter is functioning. Make sure the parking brake is on and the directional control is in neutral. Start the engine. Listen for any unusual noises as the engine warms up. Check the fuel level. Don't take a chance on running low in an area where it is hazardous to change the LP container, add gasoline, diesel, change or charge batteries. Next, check the vehicle's gauges. A list of the most common gauges and indicators and what they monitor can be found in your student workbook and the lift truck operator's manual. After making sure there are no overhead obstructions, check the mast movement by pulling the lift lever to fully raise and lower the forks. Tilt the mast back and forth to its full limits, making sure as you do so, the hydraulic movements are smooth and complete. Make sure the tilt cylinders move evenly. If your lift truck is equipped with a hydraulic attachment, check its operation. Check the service brakes. Depress the brake pedal with your foot and hold it for 10 seconds. During this time, you should feel firm resistance and no sponginess. Check that the park brake engages and disengages properly. Electric-powered lift trucks can be taken through the same operational checks in a similar manner. On electric-powered vehicles, there is another form of braking called plugging. Plugging is when you slow or stop or change directional control by moving the directional control lever to the opposite direction while keeping the accelerator pedal depressed. You can plug in either direction. When you change the directional control, the control panel senses that the drive motor is turning in the opposite direction of where the lift truck is supposed to go, and the panel goes into the plugging mode. If you need to stop the truck immediately, always use the service brake. When you are satisfied with the brakes, have checked the steering, raised the forks 4 to 6 inches, and tested the lock-to-lock. Then, while driving forward about 10 to 12 feet, check the steering for any binding or play. Finally, most CAT lift trucks are equipped with a presence detection system. This system is activated when you get off the seat. Truck traction and hydraulics are disengaged, preventing unintended movement of the truck and the hydraulics. In addition, an audible alarm will sound if you do not set the parking brake. The system includes a seatbelt warning system that tells you to fasten your seatbelt. Part of your operational inspection is to make sure this system works. If your inspection reveals any items in need of repair, report them to your supervisor. All repairs should be made by authorized personnel only. The truck should be locked and tagged out of service until the repairs have been made and checked. And remember, never operate a lift truck in need of repair. You could injure yourself and others by doing so. This is the end of Part 3. Please review the information you've been given and complete Part 3 in your workbook. When you are done, continue your training with Part 4 of this program. In this part of the program, we will be looking at the recognized guidelines for safe lift truck operation, which includes an introduction to the safe driving practices for lift truck operators. Before you operate a lift truck, read its operation and maintenance manual. You should also observe and follow all warnings posted on the vehicle. Before climbing aboard, check your hands and shoes for grease or any other substances that would cause you to slip on your way to or once in the operator's compartment. Take care when climbing on or off the vehicle. To enter the operator's compartment, squarely face the side of the lift truck. Grasp the assist grip with your left hand, the seat hip restraint with your right hand, and step up with the left foot to get on the truck. Avoid grabbing the steering wheel. The steering wheel has a certain amount of play that could cause you to lose your balance. Under no circumstances should you ever jump on or jump off a lift truck. And whenever you operate a lift truck, you should only do so from the operator's compartment with your seat belt fastened. The CAT lift truck presence detection system is designed to prevent operation of the truck when you are not in the seat. Also, avoid reaching into the moving parts of a lift truck. Keep all body parts inside the operator's compartment at all times. You are now ready for a look at the information that covers the safe driving practices for lift trucks. These practices begin with your analysis of where you will be operating your vehicle. This includes the areas you will drive in and the surfaces you will drive on. Lift trucks should only be used for their intended purpose in designated areas. Federal, OSHA, and the National Fire Protection Association have designed specifications for lift trucks working in hazardous areas. These specifications include special safety features on the truck which eliminate sparks that could contribute to a fire or an explosion. Make sure your truck is properly rated for the specific work area and the conditions of the job. If you are operating an internal combustion lift truck in an enclosed area, make sure the area is well ventilated. It may be necessary for you to wear personal protective equipment that is appropriately rated for the conditions you are working in. Locations where lift trucks are used generally are organized into grids. They include rows of product items divided by lanes or aisles that allow for the development of traffic patterns. Even with this system, a busy area with a high density of people and equipment on the move requires everyone to stay alert and follow proper operating procedures at all times. If you are involved in a lift truck accident resulting in injury to personnel, damage to building structure, product, or equipment, contact the designated company personnel immediately. When driving, travel with the forks in a low position, 4 to 6 inches above the surfaces you travel over. This should provide adequate clearance. Obey all company safety rules, traffic signs, and signals. Stay in approved aisles or lanes and follow established traffic patterns. Always maintain a clear view of the path you are traveling. If your forward vision is obscured, travel in reverse to maintain a clear view. Also, never grab the leg of the overhead guard with your hand as support. This practice exposes your fingers outside the operator's compartment and could cause a serious injury. Stay aware of other traffic and pedestrians. About 30% of all lift truck injury accidents involve pedestrians. 18% involve pedestrians struck by lift trucks, and 14% involve pedestrians struck by falling loads. Always yield to pedestrians. To further safeguard pedestrians, slow down when approaching corners, sound your horn, and check convex mirrors posted at corners. If you do approach pedestrians, sound your horn and make eye contact. Do not proceed until you see them acknowledge your presence. Never assume they are aware of you. It is especially important to warn others with your horn when you are operating the extremely quiet electric lift trucks. If a work situation prevents you from yielding to pedestrians, signal them to stop until you are finished. When you are finished, wave them on and then make sure they are safely out of the way before you proceed. When working in tight, congested areas around pedestrians, such as a dock, watch the rear end swing of the truck. Also, never give ride to pedestrians. Ignoring this rule is hazardous and can result in an accident. Your truck is designed for only one rider. Along with pedestrians, vehicle traffic can be dealt with by sounding your horn at intersections and obeying speed limits. You should also maintain at least a 3 truck length distance when following other vehicles. Your skill as a professional lift truck operator is based, in part, on your concern for others. Stay aware of the activity in your area, plan your maneuvers, and carefully execute them. As an operator, you will find lift trucks very responsive. This excellent maneuverability, however, must always be controlled, especially in turns. Because steering a lift truck is done with the rear wheels, in a turn, the rear end moves out and around the outside of the drive wheel path. This characteristic is known as rear end swing. If the operator is not conscious of obstacles behind him, rear end swing can result in product and property damage, serious injury to the operator, pedestrians, or other operators. As the areas you work in vary, so will the surfaces. They will not always be smooth, stable, or even continuous. Therefore, it is important that you know how to deal with these varying surface conditions. Reduce speed on slick or uneven surfaces and avoid running over loose objects or holes in your path. But recognizing and avoiding hazardous conditions that could cause injury or damages is only half of your responsibility. Whenever possible, you should eliminate the unsafe condition by removing the hazard. If the hazard can't be eliminated or removed, mark the area with a caution indicator and report it to your supervisor. Other surfaces requiring extra caution are those that have an up or downhill grade, such as a ramp. Your approach to these two opposite situations should be the following. If you are traveling empty, regardless of your direction, always move with the truck's forks pointing down the grade. If you are traveling with a load, regardless of your direction, always move with the load pointing up the grade. If your forward vision is obscured, always use a spotter when entering the building from a ramp. On railroad tracks and other rough surfaces, approach slowly at an angle and keep a firm hold on the steering wheel. Working on elevated surfaces like docks or piers requires skill and a high regard for the rules of safe operation. Trucks falling off docks account for 7% of all lift truck accidents. To avoid contributing to this statistic, you must constantly monitor the amount of safe workspace you have when working on an elevated surface by maintaining a safe distance from the dock's edge during all of your maneuvers. Always be absolutely sure that the operating surface or floor can safely support the machine. This is especially important when using lift trucks in trailers, rail cars, on elevators, or in older, multi-story buildings. It is extremely important that you know the weight of the machine, the weight of the load, and the maximum weight the traveling surface will bear before traveling on these surfaces. Two additional work situations you may encounter involve traveling into tractor trailers and rail cars. Like any other work area, both require that you make an assessment of the surface or surfaces that you will be traveling over. So, before you take your lift truck into a trailer or rail car, make these checks. Make sure both the trailer and rail car are secured against movement. The rail car's brakes should be set. The trailer's wheels should be chocked. And, if not hitched to a tractor, a jack stand or other reliable support should be in place. Bridging the gap between the docks you work on and the transportation units you load and unload are the dock or bridge plates. Before you drive over this ramp system, make certain it is in good shape, properly positioned, and secured. Next, check the condition of the flooring and its capacity rating. The combined weight of the lift truck and load must not exceed this figure. Besides trailers and rail cars, you should take these same precautions whenever you are working in elevators or old multi-story buildings. In addition to these checks, use a communication system to prevent the tractor trailer from leaving before you are finished with the job. Just as you would anywhere else, practice the proper safety procedures. This means looking out for others and making them aware of your presence by honking your horn as you enter or exit the transportation unit. If you are in doubt about how to make any of the safety checks we've just covered, ask your supervisor to make them with you. As you have just seen, a professional lift truck operator is not always confined to his or her vehicle. Likewise, it is necessary for you to know the correct procedures for safely parking your truck. When you need to park for a short time and can remain within 25 feet viewing distance of the truck, use the attended parking procedure. Attended parking allows you to leave the engine running while you are off the vehicle. To perform attended parking, put the directional control lever in neutral. Set the parking brake. Lower the forks completely and tilt them slightly forward to keep the ends against the floor. This reduces the chance of contact with them, resulting in an injury or damaged equipment. The unattended parking procedure, which allows you to leave the truck for a long period of time, is performed the same way but with the following additions. After the forks are lowered and the engine is turned off, disconnect the battery on electric trucks and shut off the service valve on LP trucks. If you are parking in an area other than one dedicated to lift trucks, make sure of the following. The truck should be left in a safe area away from aisles, stairways, pedestrian arteries, firefighting equipment, furnaces and other heat sources, and railroad tracks. You should also avoid parking on inclines, but if it is necessary, make sure you chock the truck's wheels. This is the end of Part 4. Please review the information you have been given and complete Part 4 in your workbook. When you are done, resume your training with Part 5 of this program. In this part of the program, we will make an examination of safe load handling techniques for lift truck operators. It will cover loads, how to engage them, how to travel with them, and the correct way to deploy them. Acquiring safe load handling techniques begins with a consideration of the load you want to move. Because not all loads are uniform in their weight, size, or packaging, it is important for you to inspect them. A close-up inspection can yield information that will help you decide what adjustments, if any, need to be made to the load before it is moved. Conditions that require adjustments are any that affect the load's stability. Some examples are a damaged pallet that needs replacement, a poorly balanced load that needs restacking, and loose loads that need to be rebundled. If you are ever in doubt about a load's condition or weight, don't try to move that load until it has been repaired and weighed. When you have made sure of the load stability prior to engagement, check the truck's forks. For the best support, the forks should be at least 2/3 the length of the load and laterally adjusted for even spacing between the pallet stringers and maximum width. To engage, the truck should be square with the load. While maintaining the proper fork and load alignment, carefully move the truck forward until the load touches the face of the forks. Do not slam into loads. Next, raise the load high enough for removal while maintaining enough top clearance. Then, tilt the mass back slightly to cradle the load. Check behind you looking both ways. Sound your horn and carefully back out. Then, lower the load to a safe traveling height as soon as you are clear of the stack. Because not all loads are packaged on pallets, you may have to deal with large loose loads. Such applications will require you to exercise extreme caution while you are operating. When necessary, a backrest extension can be employed to help stabilize large loads. But the loads being moved should not exceed the height of the backrest extension. After lifting the load, the next part of your job is to deliver it, and the best opportunity you have for successfully doing that lies in your ability to safely transport it. It is very important for you to maintain control of the truck and load at all times. To aid in your control, travel with the load as low as possible. This position offers greater overall stability, is less likely to contact overhead obstructions, and affords you a better view. Never make an on-the-go change of direction when carrying a load. If your forward view is obscured, travel in reverse, except on ramps. Also, never grab the leg of the overhead guard with your hand as support. This practice exposes your fingers outside the operator's compartment and could cause a serious injury. Sound the horn or use a spotter when approaching a ramp entrance with a load on your truck. Once you are on the move, maintain a speed that allows for safe, controlled maneuvers. Turns, slowdowns, and stops should all be made smoothly and carefully. When approaching a sharp corner, slow down, sound the horn, and stay close to the inside corner. Start the turn when the inside drive wheel reaches the corner. Before turning into a narrow aisle, stay about a load length away from the entrance to the aisle. Start the turn early before reaching the middle of the aisle so that you are turning as far as possible from the stockpile or obstacle. Stay aware of other traffic, pedestrians, and other obstructions in your path. You should also exercise caution by slowing down whenever you encounter blind corners, sharp curves, ramps, dips, and wet or rough surfaces. Sound the horn when necessary. When approaching the stack or deployment location, never raise the load while traveling. Altering the load height affects the change in the truck's stability. In addition, never allow pedestrians or other traffic to move under a raised load. In an effort to give you greater control, some manufacturers have adopted an inching pedal to their lift truck design. This control allows the operator to creep the truck into position anytime an extremely slow maneuver is called for, while increasing lift speeds. Do not ride with your foot on the inching pedal, as it can cause premature brake and transmission failure. Also, never use the inching pedal as a brake. Load deployment is the last part of the lift truck operator's pickup and delivery cycle. For a simple deployment, such as placing a load on the floor, move the load over the desired unloading point. Tilt the mast forward to the vertical position and lower the load slowly. Check for traffic behind you. Sound your horn and carefully back away to disengage the forks. When you are stacking a load, approach the unloading point and position your truck with a load down and stop. Tilt the mast forward until vertical and then raise the load until it is even with the stacking level. Next, slowly move the truck forward until you are within a foot of the stack and stop. Now, raise the load to 6 or 8 inches above the stacking level and creep forward, moving the load over the unloading point while maintaining the proper stacking alignment. When you have the load in position, lower it slowly and squarely on the stack below. Follow this by first checking behind you both ways for clearance and pedestrians or other lift trucks. Sound your horn and back away to disengage the load, and make sure to stop to lower the carriage to a safe traveling level. Make sure that when you lower a load onto its support that you don't over-lower the mast. By over-lowering the mast, you allow the forks to be supported by whatever is below them. This, in turn, puts unnecessary slack in the lift chain. If this situation remains unchecked, when you back away from the stack, the forks will drag over the support beneath them and fall until the slack in the lift chain is expended. As you might imagine, an incident like this has the potential for creating expensive damages to products and equipment. If you discover the load isn't where you want it or needs adjustment, don't shove it around with the forks. Pick up the load and reposition it. At times, lift trucks are used to perform overhead maintenance. This is accomplished by affixing a platform to the forks that allow workers to be raised and held in the necessary overhead position. If you are the operator on a job like this, make sure that a platform built in conformance with OSHA regulations is being used and that it is properly secured to the truck's forks. Never allow anyone to ride on or be raised on the truck's forks. 12% of all injuries and fatalities are due to personal falling from elevated forks. For obvious reasons, operations that involve raised platforms require the utmost in communication and cooperation from all those involved. After safely raising the platform into position, your job as an operator continues. You must remain at the truck's controls as long as workers remain on the raised platform, and the truck should never be moved with the workers on the platform. The information in this program, the various operators' manuals, and safety publications, your lift truck driving instructor, and your future supervisors are there for you as they have been for other operators. Yet, in spite of training and the availability of such information, one accident seems to regularly plague lift truck operators. It leads all other accidents in fatalities. It is called a tip-over. Tip-over accidents can happen in a number of ways. Sharp turns, braking abruptly, excessive speed, potholes, overhead obstructions, raised masts, overloading, unstable loads, uneven or wet surfaces, driving on ramps, low tire pressure, on pneumatic lift truck tires, are all causes of trucks tip-overs. Of course, the best way to stay out of a tip-over is to prevent it from happening by adhering to accepted safety guidelines and driving procedures. If, however, you are involved in a tip-over, don't jump. Stay with the truck. The truck's operator restraint system is designed to protect you in such an event. Rely on it and use this survival technique. Hold on tightly to the steering wheel, brace your feet on the floor, and lean forward and away from the fall. The overhead guard is not a rollover device. It only reduces the risk of material falling on the operator's head. Nothing to do with the protection in a tip-over. Statistics show that tip-over fatalities usually occur when the operator is not wearing a seatbelt or has attempted to jump clear of a falling truck. In a twist of cruel irony, they are often crushed to death by the truck frame and overhead guard that was designed to protect them. This is the end of Part 5. Please review the information you have been given and complete Part 5 in your workbook. When you are done, resume your training with Part 6 of this program. In general, lift trucks are powered by combustible fuels like gasoline, diesel, and liquid propane, or by industrial batteries. In the next 2 parts of our program, we will show you the best ways to restore these sources of power when they have been depleted. The best time to refuel a truck is at the beginning of your shift. You want to avoid running out of fuel in an area where refueling might be hazardous and disruptive to yourself and other traffic. The fuel injectors on diesel engines can be damaged if they run out of fuel. Be sure you are authorized and properly trained to refuel your lift trucks. Your company will probably have a designated fuel depot and a set of approved refueling procedures for gasoline and diesel trucks. Follow them and these general safety rules. Use the designated refueling area. Never allow smoking or the creation of sparks or flame in the refueling area. Know the location of the nearest fire extinguisher and how to use it. Before refueling, park the truck, place the directional control in neutral, and engage the parking brake. Turn off the key and lower the forks to the ground with tips angled down. Always shut the engine down before refueling. And do not add fuel to an overheated truck. When you've selected the correct fuel type, fill the tank slowly, avoiding spills and overflows. If you do spill fuel, clean the area in accordance with the EPA and your company's policies. In addition to the refueling practices for gasoline and diesel trucks, you should also know the ones that govern the refueling of liquid propane, or LP, powered trucks. Start by learning the information in your workbooks on LP characteristics. Because refueling an LP-powered truck involves the replacement of a fuel cell in the form of a gas-charged tank, It is much more detailed operation than simply using a hose to fill a tank with liquid fuel. But it is just one more of the safety procedures you can master with the right information and training. Charging an LP tank requires that you wear protective clothing that includes a face shield, long sleeves, and gauntlet gloves. Park the truck in a designated refueling area. Never try to change an LP tank in a low or confined area where the heavy gas could collect, creating a source for an explosion. You should also avoid high-temperature areas like ovens and furnaces. When you have parked, set the parking brake, lower the forks to the ground, place the transmission in neutral, and leave the engine running. Next, turn off the service valve on the container and allow the engine to run all of the fuel out of the supply line. When the engine stops, turn off the key and then try to restart the engine. If the engine fails to start, uncouple the hose from the valve. Open the restraint brackets and remove the container for storage. Make sure that the container is stored in an approved outside area with the service valve in the off position. When you get a new LP container, check to see that it is the right type, that it is free of damages, such as nicks, gouges, or dents, and the service valve is in the off position. Make sure the tank is not 12 years old or older. To install the LP container, position the tank on the locking pin, lock the restraint brackets, and see that the tank fits within the profile of the truck. At this point, slowly open the service valve while you listen and smell for leaks. Opening the valve too quickly will cause a check valve to shut off the fuel supply. If this happens, close the service valve for 5 seconds and then slowly open the valve. If you detect a leak, trace it by applying a soapy solution around the suspected area and see that it is repaired. As always, if you have any questions about equipment or refueling procedures, ask your supervisor. This is the end of Part 6. Please review the information you have been given and complete Part 6 in your workbook. When you are done, resume your training with Part 7 of this program. Because any look at power restoration procedures must include electric-powered lift trucks, let's review them next. The procedures you follow to charge or replace batteries will depend largely on the type of electric trucks you use and your company's established practices for such maintenance. Learn and follow your company's specific safety rules regarding battery charging and replacement. Accept the following information as a supplement to that knowledge. Like other forms of maintenance, the care you provide for the power system of electric lift trucks can be performed at many levels. Make sure you receive the proper instruction and are authorized before you attempt to exchange, charge, and service industrial batteries. Like internal combustion trucks, electric-powered lift trucks have different size power sources. But instead of different engines, they use different batteries and voltage configurations. The primary voltage configurations in North America are 24, 36, and 48 volts. Always check to see that the right battery is used in the right voltage configuration. The truck's capacity plate shows the minimum and maximum battery weight that the lift truck's capacity is based on. Using a battery outside this range compromises the truck's stability and capacity. Before you start any actual battery maintenance, you will need to put on safety-rated protective equipment. This includes face and eye protection, rubber gloves, and an apron. The battery's acid-based solution can cause severe burns to eyes and skin. If you come in contact with battery acid, immediately go to the nearest eye wash station and run water over the contacted area for at least 15 minutes, and follow this by seeking medical attention. Remove all conductive jewelry when working with batteries. When a battery change is called for, make sure you use the proper removal equipment. When moving a battery, always place battery cables on top of the battery. This will prevent damage to the battery, cables, or battery connector. Batteries often weigh thousands of pounds, and if handled improperly, they can cause injuries. In addition, make sure the battery is positioned properly and secured by the battery restraint system. When closing the battery cover, be careful not to pinch your hand. Always use the battery cover lifting handle. The most common operation you will perform as the operator of an electric lift truck will be charging the battery after the truck has been in use. To do this, follow these general guidelines. Park the truck in a well-ventilated, flame-free area where the tops of batteries will not come in contact with any metallic objects. This will allow the flammable hydrogen gas to vent properly and prevent any electric shorts that might be created by terminals contacting chains or metal tools. Set the parking brake, lower the forks, and turn the key to the off position. Open the battery compartment fully to allow heat and hydrogen gas to escape. Make sure the battery charger is off, unplug the battery connector from the truck and attach the charger connection to the battery. Never attach the charger connector to the truck as this will damage the lift truck. Check the cables and connectors for wear and damage. When you are satisfied with their condition, turn on the charger and follow the manufacturer's charging instructions. When the charging process is complete, always turn off the charger before unplugging the connectors. Batteries are usually worked for 8 hours, charged for 8 hours, and allowed to cool for 8 hours. Giving a wet cell battery a quick or opportunity charge is ineffective since the short amount of time does not allow the chemicals to mix sufficiently and also shortens the battery life. To help ensure battery life, a battery should be discharged to 80% of its capacity and no higher. If water is needed, always add it after a charge. Hazardous spills can be created if the battery solution or electrolyte boils out during charging. The exception to this rule is to add water before a charge in order to cover an exposed separator plate. Make sure the water that you use has been approved for the use in industrial batteries. Properly maintaining industrial batteries is very important because replacing them is an expensive process. To get the most life out of your battery, check your workbook for a list of tips on battery care. This is the end of Part 7 and the end of this program. Please review the information that you have been given and complete Part 7 in your workbook. When you need to, use the information on this tape for future reference. The producers of this training program would like to thank you for watching and wish you a safe and successful future.